Take two. Hi, everyone. Richard here from Calvin Wazoo. Here bringing you another installment of the albums of my decades. For this one, we are in the year 1978. I got kind of sidetracked in the 70s with some earlier episodes, but we're now on track for going every 10 years. So we're on 1978. Let's get started. I got quite a few here. First one is Warren Zevon, Excitable Boy, 1978 release. This was the first time I had heard anything by him, and I really liked it. There's a lot of great songs on this. He got a lot of radio play with it. The Johnny Strikes Up the Band, Roland the Headless Thompson Gunner. You can catch his sense of humor, with the songs. Of course, Werewolves of London, which was got a lot of radio play, and then Excitable Boy, which was a little macabre in some ways, but great stuff. And also, Warren Zevon was the only time I ever saw the Grateful Dead with an opening act, and I believe it was in 1978, and I was at a Dead concert in Phoenix, and Warren Zevon was the opener. So I got several of his albums now, and that one was released 1978. Someone else I have several albums of is Emmylou Harris, A Quarter Moon and 10 Cent Town. It's a good one to have. I first heard about her on the TV show Austin City Limits, and I just never got around to getting any of her albums, but I really liked her on that show. And only recently started collecting her releases. Zappa in New York, a 1978 release. I've talked a lot about this. Great one. But also released in 1978 is Studio Tan, which has the Gregory Peccary classic song. Interesting thing about Studio Tan, there was three releases. There was Studio Tan, Sleep Dirt, and Orchestral Maneuvers. I believe that's what it's called. And they were part of this ongoing project Zappa was working on called Leather, and he was having all kinds of troubles with the record company, with Warner Brothers. And so they ended up releasing the material separately on three different albums instead of in this package that he wanted it to be released as. And then they also ended up choosing the album artwork without his knowledge. So that just really, really pissed Zappa off. Not just them releasing the albums without his consent, but also doing the artwork without his input, because he was very particular about the artwork on all of his releases. Artwork never went on anything unless he approved it. And this was a case where Warner Brothers really screwed him, although I'm not going to say it's entirely their fault. It was probably very much a two-way situation. But it's notable after this that many of his concerts and releases afterwards take on this bitter tone whenever he's talking about the record companies during a show. Also released 1978, Elvis Costello, This Year's Model. Also connected with this is that infamous appearance on Saturday Night Live, where he starts to play one song and then he just says, screw it, I'm going to play this. And they ended up playing Radio, which the producers of Saturday Night Live had expressly told him not to play. So I guess you don't do that with Elvis Costello. Dixie Drews. This one is What If. I first heard about the Dixie Dregs in the 70s, listening to FM radio back in the day when FM radio would play entire sides of albums, and not just for special, shows, although it was usually like a Friday night or a Saturday night. But DJs could pretty much play whatever they wanted. This was before corporate playlists were initiated, in FM radio. I mean, now you can't even play two songs in a row from the same artist unless it's interrupted with a commercial in between or something else, or maybe it's no more than two songs, something like that, because, they don't want people recording the music off the radio. Anyway, jazz fusion with a little bit of a southern rock vibe to it. Dixie Drews, good stuff. Willie Nelson, Stardust, classic album. I am not a huge country fan, but there are a few country releases that I do like in country artists. And this, really is a tremendous album. If you're not a big country fan, but you just like good singing and songwriting, and he didn't write all the songs on here, by no means. But, if you like that style, this is a great album to have. Stardust. I mean, it's got the song Stardust, Georgia on My Mind, Blue Skies, Moonlight in Vermont. Great songs. Definitely worth putting in your collection. 1978, Peter Gabriel. This would be Peter Gabriel number 2. Yes, this is the second Peter Gabriel. His first 3 solo releases were all eponymously titled, and they didn't even say 1, 2, or 3. So this is the second one, which doesn't have some of the recognizable hits from 1 and 3, like Salisbury Hill, or now I'm drawing a blank from 3. Something about Shock the Monkey is later. Anyway, there were no huge radio play hits on this one, but this is a really solid album, great music. I've always been a Peter Gabriel fan. I loved him in Genesis, and when he left Genesis, I stopped listening to Genesis. Although I did see Genesis in concerts, we're looking at 1980 or 81, maybe somewhere around there. And they did play a few songs from The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, and they played Supper's Ready in its entirety. So, hey, it was a good show. Rolling Stones, Some Girls, amazing album. And I saw their show in 1978. Etta James performed with them. And also Linda Ronstadt came out on stage. I saw them in Tucson, and Linda Ronstadt's from Tucson. And she joined the Stones on stage to sing Tumble and Dice. So that was a great show, made infamous by a skit on Saturday Night Live. It was either a week or two later when the Rolling Stones appeared. And Dan Aykroyd was doing his shtick as Tom Snyder, a late night talk show host, and he was interviewing Mick Jagger, and he mentioned the Tucson show. Very cool. Another 1978 release, David Bowie, Stage. Great live album. Adrian Belew appears on this. This is one of the better live albums of David Bowie, and in my opinion, really like that one. Funkadelic. This is a great one from 1978. One Nation Under a Groove. Wild, cover art. Although when I got this, doesn't have the 7-inch that came with this also. I may try and track it down. It's not critical to my collection, but it's a great one from 1978. This one was all over the airwaves in 1978. The eponymous debut by Dire Straits, an amazing, amazing album. Certainly, The Sultans of Swing was a major smash hit, although it wasn't the first time it got released. It was almost ignored. It wasn't until they released the single a second time that it started getting radio play. And when it did, it was a huge hit in the United States. Couple from The Residents. This one, Not Available, was released in 1978, as well as Duck Stab. And I've talked a little bit about The Residents before, and others, I really like their stuff, but I will tell you, it's an acquired taste. It's not for everybody. Speaking of acquired tastes, 1978, Captain Beefheart and the Magic Band, Shiny Beast. Artwork, this is artwork by Captain Beefheart. Same with on the back cover. You know, he was very much into painting, and as his it was multiple sclerosis, I believe, as it started to take a greater toll on him, he stopped making albums and went to his Northern California home with his wife, where he painted until his last days. And then last, the ones that I have from 1978, The Police. Alanis Moore, you know, when this came out, and then all through their career up to Synchronicity, I was just a huge, huge Police fan. Saw them during the Ghost in the Machine tour. It was just amazing. I still like their stuff. I don't listen to it as rabidly as I used to. I mean, I was listening to this, especially Ghost in the Machine, when it came out, all the time. It was on replay all the time. But not so much anymore, but I still really, really enjoy them. They're just not an everyday listen like they used to be. So those are the albums I have that were released in 1978. If I missed any, or you think of some that were released in 1978 that I don't have and you would recommend, hey, leave a comment down under. And don't forget, there will be links to the other albums of my decades in the Down Under. Check it out, subscribe, share my video, and please always remember, enjoy your music.